Hello, welcome back. Today I'm at the Wyuka Cemetery in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're going to be visiting the grave of Charles Starkweather. He was a spree killer who murdered 11 people here in Nebraska and Wyoming between December 1957 and January 1958 when he was only 19 years old. He killed 10 of his victims between January 21st and January 29th, 1958, the day of his arrest. And he was with his 14-year-old girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate. So I'm going to tell you about his story as we go look for his grave. Starkweather was born November 24th, 1938 in Lincoln, Nebraska. The third of 7 children of Guy and Helen Starkweather. The Starkweathers were a working-class family. Starkweather's father was a carpenter who was often unemployed due to his rheumatoid arthritis in his hands. And his mother, Helen, worked as a waitress to supplement the family's income. He was born with genu varum, a mild birth defect that caused his legs to be bowed. And he was teased by classmates because he had a speech impediment. As he grew older and stronger, the only subject in which Starkweather excelled in was gym, where he found an outlet for his rage against those who bullied him. Starkweather then began to bully those who had once picked on him. Eventually, he felt rage against anyone he disliked. In this period, as a young teenager, Starkweather went from being one of the most well-behaved teenagers in the community to one of the most troubled. By the time Starkweather dropped out of school, his parents and family were reportedly afraid of him due to his violent outbursts. In 1956, at 18, Starkweather was introduced to 13-year-old Carol Ann Fugate. Starkweather dropped out of high school in his senior year and took a job at a newspaper warehouse. Because it was near Fugate's school, he began to visit her every day after school. Starkweather taught Fugate how to drive, and one day she crashed the car belonging to Starkweather's father, who banished Starkweather from the family home. Starkweather quit his warehouse job and became a garbage collector. Late on November 30th, 1957, Starkweather became angry at Robert Culver, a service station attendant in Lincoln, for refusing to sell him a stuffed animal on credit. I guess he was trying to buy a stuffed animal for his girlfriend Carol, and he didn't have any cash at the time. He returned several times during the night to purchase small items, until finally he brought a shotgun and forced Culver to give him $100 from the till. He drove Culver to a remote area where they struggled over the gun, injuring Culver before Starkweather killed him after several shots. On January 21st, 1958, Starkweather went to Fugate's home. Fugate's mother and stepfather, Velda and Marion Bartlett, told him to stay away. He fatally shot them and then clubbed their 2-year-old daughter, Betty Jean, to death. He hid the bodies behind the house. Starkweather and Fugate drove to the farmhouse of 70-year-old August Mayer, one of her family friends who lived in Bennett, Nebraska. Starkweather killed him with a shotgun blast to the head. He also killed Mayer's dog. Fleeing the area, the pair drove their car into mud and abandoned the vehicle. When Robert Jensen and Carol King, 2 local teenagers, stopped to give them a ride, Starkweather forced them to drive back to an abandoned storm cellar in Bennett. He shot Jensen in the back of the head. He attempted to rape King, but was unable to do so. He became angry with her and fatally shot her as well. Starkweather later admitted shooting Jensen, but claimed that Fugate shot King. Fugate said she had stayed in the car the entire time. The two fled Bennett and Jensen's car. Starkweather and Fugate drove to a wealthy section of Lincoln here, where they entered the home of industrialist C. Lawyer Ward and his wife Clara. Starkweather stabbed their maid to death. They waited for Lauer and Clara to return home. Starkweather killed the family dog by breaking its neck to keep it from alerting the Wards. Clara arrived first alone and was also stabbed to death. Starkweather later admitted to having thrown a knife at Clara, but insisted that Fugate had stabbed her numerous times, killing her. When Lawyer Ward returned home that evening, Starkweather shot and killed him. Starkweather and Fugate filled Ward's black 1956 Packard and stolen jewelry from the house and fled Nebraska. The murders of the Wards caused an uproar within Lancaster County, and law enforcement agencies in the region sent their officers on a house-to-house search for the perpetrators. Needing a new car because of Ward's Packard having been identified, the couple came upon traveling salesman Merle Collision sleeping in his Buick along the highway outside Douglas, Wyoming. After Collision was awakened, he was fatally shot. Starkweather claimed Fugate was the most trigger-happy person he had ever met. Fugate denied ever having killed anyone. The salesman's car had a parking brake, which was something new to Starkweather. While he attempted to drive away, the car stalled because the brake had not been released. He tried to restart the engine, and a passing motorist, geologist Joe Sprinkled, stopped to help. Starkweather threatened him with the rifle, and an altercation ensued. At that moment, the county sheriff's deputy arrived on the scene. Fugate ran to him yelling something to the effect of, quote, "It's Starkweather, he's going to kill me." Starkweather drove off and was involved in a car chase with 3 exceeding speeds of 100 miles per hour. A bullet fired by the sheriff shattered the windshield, and flying glass cut Starkweather deep enough to cause bleeding. He stopped, surrendered, and was captured near Douglas, Wyoming on January 29th, 1958. Starkweather chose to be extradited from Wyoming to Nebraska. He and Fugate arrived there in late January 1958. He believed that either state would have executed him. He was not aware, however, that Millard Simpson, Wyoming's governor at the time, opposed the death penalty. Starkweather first said that he had kidnapped Fugate and that she had nothing to do with the murders. However, he changed his story several times. He testified against her at the trial, saying that she was a willing participant. Fugate has always maintained that Starkweather was holding her hostage by threatening to kill her family, claiming she was unaware they were already dead. The judge did not believe Fugate was held hostage by Starkweather, and he determined she had numerous opportunities to escape. When Starkweather was first taken to the Nebraska penitentiary after his trial, he said that he believed he was supposed to die. He said if he was to be executed, then Fugate should be also. Starkweather was convicted for the murder of Jensen, the only murder for which he was tried. On May 23, 1958, he was sentenced to death, and Starkweather was executed in the electric chair at the Nebraska State Penitentiary in Lincoln, Nebraska at 12:04 a.m. on June 25, 1959. Starkweather gave no last words, but in a letter from prison to his parents, he wrote, quote, "But Dad, I'm not real sorry for what I did, because for the first time, me and Carol have more fun," end quote. Following the execution, Starkweather was buried here in Wyuka Cemetery in Lincoln, as are 5 of his victims, including Mr. and Mrs. Carl Ward. Fugate was convicted as an accomplice and received a life sentence on November 21st, 1958. She was paroled in June 1976 after serving 17.5 years at the Nebraska Correctional Center for Women in York, Nebraska. She eventually settled in Hillsdale, Michigan. We're coming up to Charles Starkweather's grave here. You can see November 25th, 1938 to June 25th, 1959, and it says, "Rest in peace." So, as a lot of you probably know, this story has inspired many TV shows and movies, including the most popular one, Natural Born Killers. And also, an anonymous donor paid for Starkweather's first marker in 1970, which was vandalized, and it was said actor Martin Sheen, who portrayed him in the 1973 film Badlands, purchased this new marker for him here, and it's still here today. So yes, very interesting story, and well-known serial killer here in Nebraska. And also 5 of his victims are in this same cemetery as well. This is Carol Ann Fugate's family. Marion was her stepfather, Velda was her mother, and then her stepsister, 5-year-old Betty Jean. They were all murdered at their house by Starkweather and maybe Fugate, I don't know. But rest in peace to the Bartlett family. I'm gonna leave a chip, and my niece Haley is leaving Betty Jean a little sucker. So rest in peace. Hope you enjoyed that video and getting to see the grave of Charles Starkweather. Please like and subscribe for some more videos, and I'll see you at the next grave. Thanks.